My ex-wife and I live together with our son. I have an opportunity to move out and share time with my son evenly with her. What should I do? My wife and I have been married since October of 2022 and have lived together since August of 2020, just before our son was born. The three of us, my son, wife and I, share a large room in the house and live with her mom, two sisters, and the daughter of one of her sisters. It's a crowded living situation, but we make it work for financial reasons and we all generally get along well. I take a lot of tasks in the house upon myself, such as doing the dishes, cooking dinner every night, except for when we go out to eat, which isn't often, cleaning the bathroom we share, sweeping/mopping on weekends, etc. It tends to take a lot of time from my day because I also work a full-time job Monday through Friday and there's a lot of people living in the same house and sharing the same amenities. To put it lightly, my in-laws are lax about helping out with these responsibilities and I take care of them because they have to be done. My wife does what she can while she's home alone with our son. Everyone else works during the day, about the same hours as me, and my sister-in-law drops off her daughter at her in-laws while she works. My wife and I have tried to sit down and talk to them about helping out, but it tends to end with them refusing to do anything because we use the kitchen more, or one of us spent more time in the bathroom the other day so we should clean it, etc. I don't want to complain too much, but it is a grievance of mine that I've had to deal with since I moved in, and at the end of the day didn't mind too terribly much given that at least I was living somewhere with my wife and son and living somewhere with a relatively low cost and saving to build up a life with my family. The prospect of us moving out and having our own space was keeping me going. That was until my wife and I broke up. To make an extremely long story very short, my wife cheated on me the month we got married. I found out a couple days after it happened, and for a solid month I was very angry and depressed and was set on leaving her and her family behind. I was close to leaving a few times, but every time I thought I was for sure going to leave, the thought of my son having to be split between me and my wife turned my thoughts around and made me want to stay. Eventually, I decided to talk to my wife about us staying together for our son and trying to move past what had happened for the sake of his happiness. I thought she would be on board for this until she revealed to me that she didn't want to be together. She felt like during the time we had been together. For context, we had been together for 6 years before we got married and were each other's first serious relationships. She was missing out on what it's like to be with other people, and that the only thing she regretted about cheating on me was the fact that she lost one of her friends because of it. The person she cheated on me with was a close friend of ours, the godfather of our son, and after I found out about what happened I blew up on him and he decided to not talk to either of us anymore after that. She had apparently been in love with him since before her and I started dating, and losing him felt like a great loss to her. I was floored and angry again after learning this, but not terribly surprised considering she had cheated on me to begin with. I went back and forth again with her and myself about wanting to leave, wanting to stay so we can be together for our son. We eventually decided that we would continue to live together in the same house as friends, and not tell her family about what had happened so as to keep her family from blowing up on her and making the situation awkward for us and our son. Reading this back, I realize not telling them to begin with may have been a misstep on my part. I've also brought up to my wife that we should consider moving out together with my son so we don't have to tell her family anything, and there was even a time I actively tried to make this happen, but every time I found a place or we were on the cusp of making it happen, she'd back out or come up with some reason she doesn't want to. She's not committed to the idea of us moving out at all and seems married to the idea of her staying with her family. Since we were separated, she started seeing and dating other people, but I haven't, largely because I'm tied to the house and being with my son when I get home from work. We work alternating shifts with myself working during the day and her working evenings, so she finds time to be able to see other people after her shifts when we're all asleep and I'm home to take care of our boy. Overall, the time I have to myself is limited because she works nights on Saturdays and is off Tuesdays and Sundays, both of which are days I have to be in bed early for work. Her family are often not much help in watching my son if I want an evening to go out because they generally have their own things going on, which ultimately I choose to respect and don't mind terribly much because I get to spend time with my boy to myself when they're out of the house. The one exception is every other Sunday when I meet up with a group of my friends to hang out and play MTG and D&D, who have all become my best and most trusted friends given that they're the only folks outside of my family I see on a decently regular basis. I promise this is relevant. I lived with this situation for a while fairly contently, however fast forwarding to now it has been wearing me down. I'm realizing that living in a place where I'm basically solely responsible for a majority of housework in a crowded household while saving face for my wife to her family isn't doing my mental health any good, and I've fallen into a state of depression as of late because of it. Living in the shadow of our relationship and constantly knowing and being reminded of the fact that the life I thought was going to be my reality is no longer achievable is a great burden on my mind, and for the past few months I have been thinking about leaving again. The one thing that has kept me from wanting to move out on my own is finances. I make a decent amount of money, but the cost of living in the city I live in is high compared to others, and I don't think I could provide for my son the same way I do now on a single income, and if I were to get a second job to do so, the second paycheck would basically be going towards child care for him in the evenings, which would totally defeat the purpose of me trying to make more money for us and me trying to split time with him between me and my wife evenly. In my mind I'd settled on staying in the situation I'm in for the sake of my son, until about a month ago when one of my friends, 31M, who I'll refer to as T, who knows about my situation, offered me a room in his apartment to stay in. It's a decent enough sized room that I can put a bed for myself, a bed for my son and some cabinets for his toys and a closet large enough for our clothes. I don't own a lot of clothes and I could fit some small dressers in the closet for his clothes. The room was occupied by his then-girlfriend but they broke up, and after asking him about what he was gonna do, where he was going to go etc., he ended up making the offer to me. His lease isn't up until towards the end of the year and he told me he'd be happy to stay there if I were to move in. I would feel totally comfortable living with him and having my son around him, and I made sure to explain to him that if I moved in it basically meant my son was moving in too, and he's a young kid and can be messy and loud sometimes etc., and he was totally okay with it. We'd split rent down the middle and I would take care of groceries/toiletries while he takes care of electricity and cable, water, gas and sewage are included in the rent. He's given me until August to decide if that's what I want to do. All in all, it seems like a great move because T is someone I trust and know very well and have been friends with for years. I'll be paying just slightly more than the current rent I pay now and will be saving on groceries and toiletries, because instead of buying for 7 people I'll just be buying for 3. As an added bonus, I won't have to drive out for D&D sessions every other Sunday because they're hosted in his apartment. I'd have a good time living with him, and while I'd still take it upon myself to do all the same sorts of chores and responsibilities I have living where I am currently, the overall workload would be greatly reduced, because I wouldn't be cleaning up after everyone in the house I'm in now, which would be great for me to be able to spend more meaningful time with my son while not being occupied with something else. And to be clear, him and I would not be in any kind of romantic relationship. Everything is platonic between us, and at this point I wouldn't want to introduce a new partner of mine to my son because I don't want him to be confused, at least at this point in his life. His mother is his mommy and I am his daddy, and my wife agrees with me on this and has refrained from having him meet her current partner as well. The thing that's keeping me from just biting the bullet and moving out with my friend is guilt. While I am no longer in love with my wife given everything that has transpired and how I feel I've been treated, she is still my friend and the mother of my son. Me moving out would require that I tell her family at the very least that we are no longer together, potentially that we haven't been together for a long time, and I know that's going to make them bring up a lot of questions. I don't hate my wife, and knowing that my son would be spending half of his life still with her at the house we currently live in, I wouldn't want to leave unless I know that it's not going to be an uncomfortable environment for him. My in-laws are great to him, but not knowing how this kind of change would affect my wife makes me hesitant to pull the trigger. I have talked to my wife about me moving out being a possibility and she's not thrilled with the idea. She's worried about how her family would react and how the questions and gossip would be something she has to deal with. Part of me feels like that's something she simply has to deal with as a result of her actions, but a part of me still empathizes with her and doesn't want her to be miserable. In essence, I'd be trading her happiness for my own, which again, I think in some ways is justified, but in others isn't. At the same time as well, my son is young but he's almost 4 years old. Transitioning to living in 2 places at once is something he will totally perceive, understand is happening, and remember, it will be a notable and perceivable change for him. T's apartment is a healthy, clean environment, and I will make sure my son has everything he needs to accommodate play and sleep and hygiene and learning just as I do now. But I am nervous about how it may affect him versus growing up in a household where his parents don't love each other. I would appreciate any advice as to how to handle this situation. If you've been in a similar situation, what did you do, and if not, what would you do if you were in my place? Also, since I didn't explain earlier in the post, my wife and I will split our time with our son evenly. Basically, in the morning before work, I'll drop him off at her house and she'll watch/take care of him while I'm at work. Then after work I'll pick him up from there and he'll stay with me while she's at work. Since she's off Tuesdays, she can have him all day Tuesday, and since I'm off Saturdays, I'll have him all day Saturdays. We'll rotate every other Sunday, where every other Sunday either one of us can have him all day. TLDR, I live with my wife and a lot of her family, but they don't know we broke up because she cheated on me. We have a son and I want to leave and have an opportunity to move in with one of my friends and split time evenly with my son between me and my wife, but I'm conflicted on which direction I should go.